Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Islamic Sharia law. This is session number 110. Zakat on wealth extracted from the sea. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Zakah on wealth extracted from the sea. Most scholars stipulate that zakah is not payable on anything extracted from the sea, such as pearls, corals, chrysalite, cachalots, ambergris, fish, and so on. There is, however, a report from Ahmad that if the amount extracted reaches a nisab, then zakat is due on it. Abu Yusuf agrees with him in the case of pearls and cachalots, ambergris. Ibn Abbas holds that there is no zakah for cachalot because it is an object thrown out of the sea. Jabir said that there is no zakah on cachalot, but that it is a free spoil for anyone who finds it. Acquiring property through profit or increase. When a person acquires property and it stays in his possession for a year and constitute a nisab, then he has no other property or he has similar property which has not reached a nisab, except when the acquired property has been added to it, then the year haul of zakah becomes applicable to it from the time of its acquisition. The zakah will be payable at the completion of the haul. In such cases, the acquired property may be classified in any of the following categories. 1. The acquired holdings increase in value either by profits from trade or by an increase in animal production. These kind of holdings qualify themselves for the application of the haul and zakah. For the individuals whose merchandise or animals constitute a nisab and whose business also makes a profit or whose animals produce during the course of the haul, he should count the original and additional property as one of the purpose of the zakah. There is no dispute about this among scholars. 2. As for the acquired property which falls under the same category as the attained nisab, but it is not derived or generated from it. That is, it was acquired through the purchase, gift, or inheritance. Abu Hanifa holds that this may be combined with the nisab in order to become a part of it with regard to the haul and payment of zakah. Thus, the principal property and the profits are collectively taxable. Ash-Shafi and Ahmad suggest that newly acquired property be combined with the original one for the purpose of attaining a nisab, and that a new haul has to be assumed for it, whether the original consists of cash or animals. For example, if someone has 200 dirhams and manages to acquire another 200 dirhams during the year, he should pay zakah on both at the completion of the haul, which will begin to roll at the acquisition of new property. Malik's opinion is that of Abu Hanifa's concerning animals, but like Ahmad's in regard to gold and silver. 3. The acquired holdings are not of the same kind that one already possesses. As such, they cannot be combined with the original either for the nisab or for the year count, haul. If, however, the acquired holdings by themselves reach a nisab, their year count will be calculated independently, and the owner will pay their zakah at the completion of the haul. In the absence of these conditions, nothing is applicable to these holdings. This is the opinion of the majority of the scholars. Zakah is the responsibility of the owner, not the holdings themselves. The Hanafiya, the Malikiya, and the report from Ash-Shafi and Ahmad propose that it is the property which owes zakah. It is the property which owes zakah. The second opinion attributes to Ash-Shafi and Ahmad is that zakah is the responsibility of the owner, not the property. The difference between the two opinions is obvious. For example, someone had 200 dirhams and did not pay zakah on the sum for 2 years. The opinion which says that zakah is due on the property itself means that amount due is for 1 year only since it decreased by 5 dirhams, which was the amount due for zakah at the end of the first year. Second opinion, that zakah is the responsibility of the owner, means that he should pay zakah twice, one for the each year, as zakah is the responsibility of the owner and is not affected by the decrease of the nisab. Ibn Hazm favors the view that it is owner's responsibility. There has been no difference of opinion. He says among the Muslims since the time of the Prophet, upon whom be peace, down to his time, as to the applicability of zakah on wheat, barley, dates, silver, gold, camels, cattle, and sheep. Concerning payment of zakah from a different lot of wheat, barley, dates, gold, silver, camels, cattle, and sheep, he says it does not matter whether one pays it from the same lot, from a different one in one's possession, or from a lot that may be bought, granted as a gift, or borrowed. The conviction that the payment of the zakah is the owner's responsibility and is not necessarily that of the property itself is a sound principle. For if it becomes due on the property itself, the owner will not be permitted to make payment from a different lot. It is similar to the case of one partner being prevented from giving his money to his co-partner from a source other than the one involved in their partnership, unless the partners approve of it and it does not violate the condition of the transaction between them. Furthermore, if zakah has to be applied to the property itself, only two situations can arise. First, zakah is payable on all parts of that property and is applicable to any individual amount of it without individual specification. Second, if it is applicable to every part of it, it is impermissible to sell from any herd and grain, since zakah collectors in this case would become partners. Thus, the proprietor is not allowed to take anything from it. This is void without any dispute. Furthermore, it would become obligatory upon him to specify exactly the price of the sheep which he desires to take out, just as is done in the partnerships. If zakah is due on any part of it other than the property itself, it becomes void. This holds true in such a case, since he does not know what he might sell or whether he is taking what is due for the sadaqah collectors. This in turn backs up the above. Loss of the holdings after zakah is due. Once zakah becomes payable on the holdings, other holdings, either because of the completion of the year or harvest time, and the holdings are part of them are lost, the owner still has to pay it. Whether the loss occurred owing to negligence or not does not matter. This is the opinion of Ibn Hazm and the better opinion of the Hanbaliya. Abu Hanifa holds that it vitiates the payment of zakah if all the property perishes without the owner's role in its destruction. When part of it perishes, the perished portion is not subject to zakah. This is in accordance with the rule, and zakah is associated with the property itself. However, when the property is deliberately destroyed by the owner, zakah has to be paid. Ash-Shafi, Al-Hasan ibn Saleh, Ishaq, Abu Thawr, and Ibn al-Munzir hold that if the nisab perishes before zakah is paid, then the owner owes nothing. However, if it perishes subsequent to the accumulation of the nisab, the owner has to pay it. Ibn Qudama supports this view and says it vitiates the payment of zakah if the property perishes without any negligence on the part of the owner. This is because it is obligatory for the sake of the beneficence, which presupposes the existence of the property, and not with the purpose of impoverishing the prayers of zakah, impoverishing the payers of the zakah. Negligence in this context implies that the owner had accumulated the nisab, and thus it was possible for him to pay zakah, but he did not, and the property perished. On the contrary, if he did not have the nisab, or the holdings were not in his possession, or they were to be purchased and he could not, then this does not constitute an act of negligence. Likewise, if it is presumed that the obligation to pay zakah remains even after the holdings are lost, and the owner has the means to pay it, then he must do so. Otherwise, he should be granted a respite in order to fulfill his obligation to pay zakah. This is akin to a debt one owes to someone, but the debt owed to Allah should be considered more important. The loss of zakah after it is set aside. When a person set aside zakah for distribution among the poor, and all of it or some of it is lost, he must repay it because it is still his responsibility. Ibn Hazm says, we received a narration from Ibn Abi Shayba on the authority of Hafs ibn Ghayat, Jarir, Al-Mumtamir ibn Sulaiman, At-Tayami, Zayd ibn Hubab, and Abdul Wahab ibn Ata, also from Hafs, who narrated on the authority of Hisham ibn Hassan from Al-Hasan al-Basri, Jarir, who reported on the authority of Al-Mughira from his companions, and Al-Mutamir, who reported from Muammar from Ahmad, and Zayd, who reported from Shubha from Al-Hakam, and Abdul Wahab, who reported on the authority of Ibn Abi Uruba from Ahmad, from the Ibrahim an-Nakhai, that whoever sets aside zakah from his property and then it is lost, his obligation to pay zakah still remains to be discharged, and he must set it aside again. There exists, however, another opinion on it. We received a narration on the authority of Ata that the obligation will be discharged if set aside and lost, says Ibn Hazm. Delaying on zakah payment does not void it. Ash-Shafi holds that anyone who does not pay zakah for the number of years must pay it all together, whether or not he is aware of the obligation or he happens to be in a Muslim or non-Muslim land, makes no difference. Based on the opinion of Malik, Ash-Shafi, and Abu Thawr, Ibn al-Munzir says, when the unjust people rule a country and the people of that country do not pay their zakah for the number of years, then their new leader should take it from them. The payment of the value instead of paying the item itself. It is not permissible to pay the value instead of the item itself, except in the case of the non-existence. For zakah is an act of ownership, except is an act of worship, which can only be fulfilled according to the specified manner, with the rich sharing their wealth with the poor. Muaz reported that Prophet, upon whom be peace, sent him to Yemen and told him, take grain from the grain, sheep from the sheep, camels from the camels, and cows from the cows. This hadith is narrated by Abu Dawood, Ibn Majah, Al-Bayhaqi, and Al-Hakim. It should be noted that there is no interruption in the chain of this hadith, since Ata did not hear it from Muaz. Disapproving of substitution, Ash-Shawkani says, the truth of the matter is that zakah is obligatory on the item itself and should not be substituted for its value, except where there is a valid excuse. Abu Hanifa permits the acceptance of the value, whether the individual owing could pay it in the item itself or not, because zakah is the right of the poor, and he believed that it made no difference whether it is paid in the item or in something else of equal value. Al-Bukhari reports with a firm statement that Muaz asked the people of Yemen to give him either goods or clothes of silk or the garments as zakah instead of barley and corn, because it was more convenient for them. The companions of the Prophet, upon whom be peace, were also given the choice in Medina. Zakah on shared property. When holdings are shared between two or more partners, zakah is not obligatory on either one until all of them attain a nisab individually. This is the opinion of most scholars. This does not include the combination of animals, which has been discussed earlier, evading the payment of zakah. The opinion of Malik, Al-Awza'i, Ishaq, Ahmad, and Abu Ubaid is that whoever possesses a nisab of any kind of the property and then sells it before the completion of the year haul, or gives it away as a gift, the damages part of it with the intention of avoiding its zakah, or damages part of it with the intention of avoiding its zakah, he still must pay its zakah. If he engages himself in any of the preceding acts at a time when his obligation to pay zakah is about to mature, he will be forced to pay it. If, however, any of the preceding acts happen at the beginning of the haul, this will not constitute an evasion, and he will be legally free from his obligation to pay zakah. Abu Hanifa and Shafi hold that since the amount decreased before the end of the haul, zakah will not be paid on it. He would still be considered a wrongdoer and disobedient to Allah for attempting to escape it. The early Muslims based their rationale on the ayah in which Allah the Exalted One says, "Lo, we have tried them as we tried the owners of the garden when they vowed they would pluck its fruits the next morning and made no reservation for the will of Allah. Then a visitation from your Lord came upon it while they were asleep. So the garden became a dark and desolate spot in the morning, as if it were plucked." Al-Malik, ayah 17 to 20. Allah punished those people for avoiding their obligation to the poor. Zakah, as such, will still be due, and a person has to pay it because his intention was to deprive the poor of their share in his wealth. This would be similar to the cause of a man who divorces his wife during his terminal illness. His evil intention calls for punishment as a redemptive act. Another case of a similar nature would be that a person who kills his benefactor so that he could have his inheritance. In that case, Allah punishes him by depriving him of his inheritance. Ladies and gentlemen, here this session number 110 about zakah on wealth extracted from the sea finishes. Let's all together very repentfully and remorsefully pray from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He bestows upon us the sincere intention and resolve to learn commandments of Holy Quran and Siratul Nabi, Hadith and Sunnah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the wisdom, courage and strength to pass this benevolent knowledge to others and apply it on all societies, countries and world as a whole in letter and spirit 100%. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be our best guide and protector, and may He bestow upon us what is best suited for us. Ladies and gentlemen, please take care of yourself, your kith and kins and your environment as a whole. Inshallah, till next session. Allah Hafiz.